The galaxy was calm the night the Caro Dominion fleet moved through the empty star fields. Their warships, dark and massive, drifted in perfect formation. For thousands of years, the Caro had fought every kind of enemy. They had crushed reptilian empires, burned insectoid hives, and silenced entire machine worlds. Nothing had ever scared them. Nothing had ever confused them. Nothing had ever stopped them. Commander Dravak stood on the bridge of the flagship, his 4 glowing eyes scanning the stars. He felt no fear, only boredom. The galaxy had become too quiet, too easy. The Dominion ruled almost every known system. Only a few small sectors remained unexplored, but the Caro believed nothing dangerous lived there. The universe had already shown them all its threats. Then a strange signal arrived. It was small, weak, and carried a frequency they had never seen before. Dravak ordered the ship's scanners to focus. The crew worked fast. They expected to discover another primitive species ready to be conquered in a single day. But the signal was different. It did not ask for help. It did not offer peace. It was simply a message, repeated again and again. It said, "This space is under human protection. Do not enter." The word meant nothing to the Caro. They had never heard of humans. They had met thousands of species, but none called themselves that. Dravak believed it was an empty threat, maybe a warning from some small colony trying to sound strong. He ignored it. The Dominion fleet continued forward. A few hours later, they reached the system the message came from. It was small, with a single bright sun and 3 rocky planets. The third planet had oceans, green lands, and signs of life, but something was strange. Small metal objects orbited the planet. Satellites, probes, old communication arrays. Some were active, some were broken, but none were Caro technology. Dravak stared at the readings. Whoever lived on the third planet had been in space recently. Their machines were simple, but they had reached orbit. That meant intelligence. That meant a new species. The crew grew excited. A new enemy to conquer. A new world to control. Dravak ordered the fleet to descend. As the ships moved closer to the planet, the scanners detected something unexpected. Metal structures stood on the surface. Cities, roads, factories, launch pads. There were signs of war, craters, debris, ruined buildings. But no signs of life. The planet was silent. "What happened to them?" one of the officers asked. Dravak didn't know. The planet looked abandoned. Yet the same message kept repeating from an old satellite, "This space is under human protection. Do not enter." The commander dismissed it as a machine with no purpose, still running long after its creators died. But then another signal appeared. This one was not weak. It was strong, clear, and aimed directly at the Dominion fleet. The translation system struggled for a moment, then displayed the message. "You are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately. Final warning." The bridge went silent. Dravak wasn't used to warnings. Enemies usually begged for mercy when they saw the Dominion fleet. No one warned the Caro. No one challenged them. He ordered the scanners to find the source. The source found them first. From behind a small moon, a ship appeared. It was smaller than a Dominion warship, but moved faster, cutting through the dark like a blade. Its design was different. Sharp angles, heavy armor, glowing engines. It looked like a weapon built for speed and war. Dravak stared at it. "Identify," he commanded. The computer answered after a long pause. "Unknown vessel. Power output. High. Weapon systems. Active." The ship sent another message. "This is the United Terran Defense Vessel Artemis. You have violated human space. Reverse course now." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The Caro were fearless, but they had never seen such confidence from a single small ship facing an entire fleet. Dravak answered, "This system belongs to the Dominion. We will take what we want." For a moment, the unknown ship stayed still. No reply. No movement. Then, in one sudden burst, it attacked. A bright beam shot from its hull, striking the nearest Dominion cruiser. The explosion shook space. Fire and debris scattered. The cruiser, one of the Caro's strongest, split apart like thin metal. The bridge filled with shock. No small ship had ever destroyed a Dominion warship with one shot. Dravak growled. "Return fire!" The entire fleet opened fire. Hundreds of beams crossed the darkness. But the human ship moved like nothing they had seen. It dodged, spun, and slipped between the attacks with impossible precision. "Impossible," one officer whispered. "Their reaction time. Their speed." The Artemis returned fire again and again. Another cruiser fell. Then another. The Dominion fleet, once unstoppable, was losing ships to a single human vessel. Dravak felt something he had never experienced in his long life. He felt fear. The galaxy had changed, and they had stepped into a territory they did not understand. The message had been true. This space was under human protection, and the war had just begun. The remains of the destroyed cruisers drifted in silence. Flames burned in the empty void, slowly fading as metal cooled. The Caro Dominion fleet, once confident and proud, now faced something they had never expected. A single human ship had damaged them more in minutes than most enemies had done in years. Commander Dravak struggled to understand what he had seen. For centuries, the Dominion had evolved into the strongest force in the galaxy. Every battle had taught them that size, power, and numbers always won. But the human ship had moved like a living creature. It felt almost as if it knew their next move before they even made it. He ordered the fleet to widen formation, hoping it would reduce casualties if the human ship attacked again. The officers moved quickly, their hands shaking as they adjusted controls. It was clear to Dravak that their fear was growing. Even his own heart beat faster than normal. Another message came from the human vessel. "Final warning. Turn back now." The voice was calm, cold, confident. It wasn't asking for peace. It wasn't asking for negotiation. It simply demanded that the Dominion leave. Dravak refused to believe that one small ship could stop a fleet of 30 war cruisers. He believed the humans were arrogant or simply unaware of what the Dominion could do. He convinced himself that the first attack was a trick or some rare weapon they could not fire again soon. He decided to test them. "Launch interceptors," he ordered. Hundreds of small Caro fighters shot out from the carriers. They formed a cloud of sharp metal wings, engines glowing bright. These fighters were fast, light, and deadly. No enemy had ever survived a swarm of Caro interceptors. They raced toward the human ship. At first, it looked like the swarm would overwhelm the vessel. The fighters surrounded it from all sides, moving in perfect, deadly circles. Dravak watched the screen closely, waiting for the moment of victory. Then something strange happened. The human ship released small spheres of light. They moved slowly at first, drifting toward the incoming fighters as if they were harmless floating objects. But the moment the spheres touched the first row of interceptors, they exploded. The blast was silent but bright. Dozens of fighters disappeared instantly, their metal burning into dust in front of everyone's eyes. The remaining fighters broke formation, panicking. They tried to escape, but more spheres followed them with impossible accuracy. One by one, the interceptors fell apart, their parts scattering across the void. Within seconds, the entire fighter swarm was gone. Dravak felt his chest tighten. The human ship had destroyed hundreds of fighters without even aiming. It was as if the humans had weapons designed to counter everything the Dominion used. The bridge fell silent except for the low hum of the engine. "Commander," one officer whispered. "What kind of species are these humans?" No one answered. Dravak stared at the glowing ship on the screen. "We need to capture it," he said firmly. "If we understand their technology, we may find a weakness." He ordered a cluster of heavy boarding ships to move forward. These ships were built to attach to enemy hulls, cut open the armor, and send soldiers inside. Each boarding ship carried hundreds of Karo warriors trained for close combat. They approached the human vessel carefully, but before they could attach, the human ship's engines flared bright. It moved forward with a burst of speed that shocked everyone. In seconds, it was behind the boarding ships, targeting their weak spots. One precise shot, one explosion, one boarding ship turned into molten fragments. The human ship spun again, striking the second, then the third, then the fourth. All four were gone before the Dominion fleet even had time to react. Dravak felt anger rising inside him. This wasn't just a strong enemy. This was a predator, a hunter, a species that fought with precision instead of chaos, a species that understood war far better than the Dominion expected. Before he could issue new orders, a new signal appeared. It was not from the human ship. It was from somewhere else deeper in the system. Another vessel uncloaked, larger than the Artemis, with heavy armor and glowing blue shields. It carried markings the Dominion did not recognize, but the message it sent was clear. This is the Terran Vanguard battleship Aegis. Reinforcements have arrived. The second ship dwarfed the first. It looked like a flying fortress. Long cannons lined its sides, each one charged with energy. Within seconds, hundreds of tiny drones launched from its hull, spreading like silver dust across space. The Dominion fleet finally understood the truth. The small ship that attacked them wasn't a lone defender. It was only the beginning. Dravak felt something he had never allowed himself to feel. A sense that this battle was not just unexpected. It was unwinnable. His officers waited for his command, but he couldn't speak. The Dominion, proud rulers of the galaxy, had stepped into a storm they did not see coming. A human storm. And now it was too late to turn back. The appearance of the battleship Aegis changed everything. Its massive form filled the Dominion scanners with warning lights. Its energy signature was stronger than anything the Karo had ever witnessed. Even the flagship's advanced systems struggled to read it. Every number looked impossible. On the bridge, Commander Dravak kept his eyes locked on the screen. The human battleship did not fire. It simply waited. Its silent presence carried a message louder than any weapon. The Dominion was not prepared for this fight. The Karo fleet adjusted formation, spreading out to avoid being trapped between the two human ships. Officers spoke in rapid whispers, their voices shaking. No one wanted to admit the truth, but every soul on that bridge felt it. The humans were not just defenders. They were hunters waiting for the next move. A message from the Aegis arrived. "You have violated protected territory. Retreat now. This is your last chance." The calm tone felt like ice sliding through Dravak's chest. He had fought emperors, hive queens, machine tyrants, but none of them had spoken with such quiet certainty. The humans didn't need to threaten. They stated facts. Dravak answered with forced confidence. "We are the Dominion. We do not run." There was no reply. Instead, the Aegis released hundreds of drones. They spread out across the void, creating a web of blinking lights. Each drone was small, but together they formed a pattern the Karo had never seen. The Dominion scanner interpreted the formation as a combat grid, a perfect trap design. One officer swallowed hard. "Commander, their drones have surrounded us. If they activate, we cannot escape." Another officer whispered, "This is their territory. They planned for enemies long before we arrived." The truth was becoming clear. Humans were not a new race. They were simply unknown to the Dominion. They had been growing quietly, preparing in the shadows of the galaxy. And now, they were ready. Dravak opened a private channel to the fleet captains. Their faces appeared on the screen, each one showing the same tension. "We must strike now," Dravak said. "We focus our fire on the smaller vessel. If we destroy it, we can move through the gap before their battleship reacts." The plan was dangerous, but the captains agreed. There was no alternative. If they stayed still, the human grid would tighten. If they retreated, the Dominion's reputation would shatter. If they fought, they had a small chance. Dravak gave the command. All ships, target the vessel known as Artemis. Fire at will. The darkness of space exploded with light. Dozens of beams shot forward, converging toward the human ship. The Artemis moved instantly, weaving between the glowing attacks. Its engines burned bright blue, leaving long trails of light behind it. But the Dominion ships continued firing. The beams were thick and heavy. A few finally struck the human ship's shields, shaking it violently. Sparks flashed across its hull. The first real damage appeared. The officers on the Dominion bridge cheered. For a moment, hope returned. Then the Aegis moved. Its cannons lit up like small suns. Energy gathered along its sides, building and building until its entire hull glowed with burning white light. "Brace for impact!" an officer shouted. The battleship fired one massive beam. The shot didn't aim at the Dominion fleet directly. Instead, it struck the center of the drone grid. The explosion triggered a chain reaction. Every drone lit up, sending a wave of controlled energy across the entire battlefield. The Dominion ships were caught in it. Their shields flickered. Their engines stalled. Their weapon systems shut down one after another. It wasn't an attack meant to kill. It was a message. The humans were showing restraint, but also complete control. The Dominion ships drifted helplessly, weapons useless, engines cold. On the human channel, a new voice spoke. Older, calm, steady. "This is Admiral Reyes of the Terran Defense Force. Your technology is outdated. Your tactics are predictable. You have entered a protected sector and attacked without provocation." Dravak forced himself to speak. We were exploring. We did not know humans existed." "That is your failure," Reyes replied. "Not ours." Dravak tried again. "We are willing to negotiate." There was silence on the line. A long silence. Dravak felt his throat tighten. He wondered if humans even respected negotiation. The Admiral finally answered. "We do not negotiate with invaders. We defend, and we warn. This is your warning." The Aegis charged its cannons again. "Retreat now. This is your final chance to survive." The bridge lights flickered. The Dominion fleet had no working engines. They couldn't retreat even if they wanted to. Officers rushed to repair systems, but the human energy field was like a net holding them in place. Dravak realized something terrifying. The humans were not preparing to destroy them. The humans were waiting for something. The Admiral's voice returned. "Second Terran fleet arriving. Stand by." The space behind the battleship began to shimmer. Blue rings appeared, spinning like portals opening one by one. The readings showed multiple large objects emerging, not one ship, not two, not five, but an entire human fleet. The Dominion had believed they were unstoppable. Now they understood how wrong they were. Humans were not weak. Humans were not slow. Humans were not afraid. Humans were ready. And the real war was only beginning. The second Terran fleet arrived like a silent storm. One by one, massive shapes pushed through the glowing blue rings. Their hulls were dark, armored, and filled with glowing lines that pulsed like living veins. Each new ship was larger than the last, and every single one carried more weapons than the Dominion had seen on entire enemy armadas. The Dominion officers watched with widening eyes as the human fleet assembled. 20 ships, then 30, then 50. Some were carriers, holding more drones. Others were heavy destroyers, built thick and slow like moving fortresses. And at the center of the formation appeared a huge ship with a golden emblem on its side. A human flagship. The Dominion fleet shrank in comparison. 30 weakened cruisers facing more than double their number, and all of them stronger. A calm voice echoed through the bridge speakers. It belonged to Admiral Reyes again. "This is Terran Fleet Command. The Dominion fleet will prepare for escort out of protected space." Commander Dravak tried hard to hide the tremor in his voice. You want to escort us like children? Reyes answered without emotion. We want you to leave. If you refuse, we will force you. Dravak's pride burned. The Karo Dominion had ruled for millennia. They had crushed civilizations with a single order. They were feared everywhere they traveled. And now humans, unknown, unseen, unheard of, were speaking to them as if they were nothing. Dravak forced himself to stand straight. We will not be escorted like prisoners, Reyes answered instantly. Then repair your engines. You have 5 minutes before we disable your fleet permanently. The human admiral spoke without threats, without anger, without hesitation. His words felt final, like the closing of a metal door. Dravak turned to his officers. Get engines online. Now. But the systems were still locked by the human energy net. Engineers tried to override the interference, but nothing worked. Their screens showed messages they had never seen before. The drones were restricting every power signal, every engine spark, every weapon pulse. The Dominion fleet was trapped. A young officer spoke softly. Commander, this is impossible. Humans are using technology far beyond ours. Dravak didn't answer. He watched the human fleet on the main screen, feeling a weight in his chest grow heavier. For the first time in his life, he believed he had led his fleet into a grave. But before fear could fully settle, something unusual happened. The giant human flagship sent a code toward the Dominion ships. The code was not a weapon. It was a repair command. A strange energy wave swept across the Dominion hulls. Systems began rebooting. Engines flickered. Power returned slowly, carefully. The humans were restoring them. The Dominion officers stared in disbelief. They are helping us, someone whispered. Dravak understood. No. They are controlling the situation. They want us alive so we can deliver their warning to the Dominion High Council. Humans didn't want to destroy them. Humans wanted them to remember. Engine by engine, the Dominion fleet came back to life. The power returned, but the humans still kept their weapons locked on every ship. One wrong move would bring instant fire. Admiral Reyes spoke again. Once your engines are functional, you will follow the escort path provided. Any deviation will be treated as an act of war. The Karo fleet had no choice. They had entered enemy territory without permission and had been completely defeated. The entire bridge felt the weight of it. The human ships repositioned, forming a corridor of glowing blue lights. It looked like a path in space, a safe route leading away from the human system. Dravak stared at it. Set course. Follow their path. The Dominion ships started moving. Slowly, quietly. The humans watched without speaking. It felt like walking through a field of predators who allowed them to leave only by choice. As the fleet traveled through the escort corridor, they passed close to the human flagship. Dravak studied it carefully, wanting to understand the enemy that had humbled him so completely. The ship's hull carried scars, burn marks, old impact dents, and patched armor. This vessel had fought many battles, but it was not worn down. It was stronger. Humans learned from every fight, improving, adapting. Dravak felt a cold realization. Humans were not new to war. Humans were shaped by war. The Dominion fleet reached the edge of the corridor. Space stretched out once more into emptiness. The human ships did not follow. They stayed at the border, forming a silent wall. Then Admiral Reyes spoke one last time. Karo Dominion, you have tested our borders. Do not test our patience. This galaxy is big enough for peace, but if you return with weapons, we will end the war before it begins. The channel closed. The human fleet remained still, watching, waiting. Dravak looked at the empty space ahead. The Dominion fleet was free to go. But the commander knew that this defeat would echo across their empire. It would shatter their confidence. It would spark fear, and fear would lead to decisions. He breathed deeply, set course for Dominion space. The ships turned away, engines glowed. As they began to travel home, Dravak understood the truth. Their leaders would never allow this humiliation to stand. The Dominion would return. And when they did, every star in the galaxy would feel the coming storm. The Dominion fleet moved through the darkness of space, silent and tense. Every officer felt the weight of the encounter with the humans. No celebrations, no conversation, no confidence. Only quiet fear traveled with them. The damage to their pride was far heavier than the damage to their ships. Commander Dravak remained in his command chair, staring at the star map. Every glowing point represented a sector the Dominion controlled. Thousands of systems, billions of citizens, and yet all of them were now at risk because he had led the fleet into human territory. He replayed the battle in his mind again and again. Every move, every shot, every mistake. The humans had not just defeated them, they had controlled the entire fight. They had shaped the battlefield like it belonged to them. One thing was clear. If humans had wanted the Dominion fleet destroyed, they would not be returning home. An officer approached cautiously. "Commander, message from High Council. They demand a report." Dravak exhaled slowly. "Send a secure channel." Moments later, a large hologram appeared in front of him. 10 tall Karo leaders stood in a circle, cold eyes, heavy armor, strict expressions. They were the rulers of the Dominion. They did not accept mistakes. They did not forgive weakness. The High Chancellor stepped forward. "Commander Dravak, explain how you lost ships in an uncharted system." Dravak lifted his head. "We encountered a new species, humans." The council members exchanged surprised looks. One of them spoke sharply. "Unknown species should not have advanced fleets." "They do," Dravak answered quietly. "Their technology surpasses ours. Their weapons are precise. Their tactics are unpredictable. They disabled our entire fleet with ease." A wave of anger and disbelief spread through the council chamber. "Impossible!" another councilor snapped. "Nothing outmatches Dominion science." Dravak raised his voice. "I saw it myself. They trapped us with drones, disabled our engines, destroyed ships without warning, and controlled the battlefield as if they had planned for us." The chamber fell silent. The High Chancellor spoke again, slower this time. "How many of them?" "Too many," Dravak said. "A full fleet, possibly more. They have been building in secret." Another council member leaned forward. "Did you retreat with honor?" Dravak felt shame but answered truthfully. "We were escorted out." The chamber erupted in shock. To the Dominion, being escorted was worse than defeat. It was humiliation. The High Chancellor raised a hand and the room fell silent again. "You will return immediately," the Chancellor ordered. "Bring every piece of data you gathered. We must study these humans." Dravak bowed his head. "As you command." The hologram faded. The moment the council disappeared, the bridge crew looked at him with worried eyes. They all knew what the High Council would do next. The Dominion never accepted new rivals peacefully. If they considered humans a threat, war was certain. Hours passed as the fleet continued the journey home. Engineers repaired systems. Pilots performed quiet checks. No one spoke about what was coming, but everyone felt it. Then a soft alarm sounded. "Commander," an officer reported. "We have detected something behind us." Dravak stood quickly. "Humans?" "No," the officer said after checking again. "Not humans. Something else." The screen zoomed out, showing the Dominion fleet, and far behind them several strange signals. Slow, weak, barely noticeable, but they followed the same path. Dravak frowned. "Unknown vessels?" "Yes, Commander. They are scanning our trail." Dravak felt a chill. "Put it on main display." The image sharpened. Several small ships with thin, glowing engines drifted silently in the distance. They didn't look like human ships. Their design was strange. Organic shapes, curved hulls, and shimmering white armor. Dravak had never seen them before. "What are they doing?" he asked. "They are tracking our fleet," the officer replied. "They joined our path right after we crossed the human border." Another officer gasped. "Commander, what if they are watching the humans too?" Dravak's eyes narrowed. Something was not right. These ships had hidden themselves during the human encounter. They had waited until both sides were gone. That meant intelligence. That meant purpose. "Scan them," Dravak ordered. The scanners tried, but the readings came back distorted. The ships were coated in a type of energy that scrambled sensors. "Commander, their technology is advanced," the officer whispered. "Maybe even more advanced than humans." Dravak stared at the unknown ships drifting behind them like silent shadows. For the first time, he wondered if the humans were not the biggest threat in that corner of the galaxy. The Dominion fleet increased speed. The unknown vessels mirrored their movement perfectly. Dravak clenched his jaw. Whoever these new species were, they had followed them out of human territory. Maybe they were studying the coming conflict. Maybe they wanted something else. But one thing was certain. The humans were not alone in the shadows of the galaxy. And the Dominion was not the only empire watching them. The war Dravak feared was only one piece of a much bigger danger. The Dominion fleet pushed deeper into their own territory, trying to escape the unknown ships that followed quietly behind them. No alarms blared, no weapons locked on, no threats were sent. The mysterious vessels simply remained at a distance, matching speed perfectly, as if they were studying every movement the Dominion made. Commander Dravak stayed on the bridge, eyes fixed on the tracking screen. The unknown ships were small, elegant, and too quiet. They didn't behave like scouts. They didn't behave like hunters. They behaved like observers. An officer broke the silence. "Commander, they aren't scanning us anymore." Dravak looked sharply at him. "Explain. They scanned us for hours, but now, nothing. They're only following." Dravak didn't like that. "Why stop scanning?" The officer shook his head. "I don't know. It's as if they already collected everything they needed." Dravak turned toward the display again. The unknown vessels glowed softly, almost peaceful. But peaceful things in the galaxy were often the most dangerous. He had learned that many times during his years of war. Another officer approached. "Commander, should we prepare for battle?" Dravak shook his head. "No, we don't understand them. If we attack without reason, we might provoke something far worse than the humans." The mention of humans brought a deep silence to the entire bridge. No one wanted to face them again. Hours passed. Then the unknown ships stopped. They drifted quietly, letting the Dominion fleet continue forward alone. The officers exchanged confused looks. Dravak leaned forward. "Why are they stopping?" The scanners beeped as if trying to answer. A new reading appeared. Weak at first, then stronger. The unknown ships were forming a shape, a symbol. Dravak stared hard. "What is that?" A young comms officer whispered. "Commander, it looks like a warning." The symbol looked like a circle with a single diagonal slash through it. Not a word, not a message. A sign to stop. Before the Dominion could respond, the unknown ships faded, literally faded, until their forms dissolved into streaks of light and disappeared. No jump signal, no warp trail, no engine burst. They simply vanished. The bridge fell completely silent. Dravak felt pressure building in his mind. Those ships were not normal, not from any empire the Dominion had encountered. Their technology made the humans' power look understandable by comparison. Dravak turned away from the screen. "Set course for Homeworld. We report everything. Every detail." The fleet moved again, but now something hung heavy in every breath. A sense that the galaxy was no longer as simple as the Dominion believed. The humans had changed everything, and the silent watchers had changed even more. A day later, the Dominion fleet finally approached the edges of their core systems. Outposts recognized them, sending welcome signals, unaware of the fear carried in their wake. But before the fleet entered the home system, one final message arrived. A coded transmission, not from their outposts, not from their council, from the humans. The bridge froze. Dravak ordered the message to be played immediately. The human voice was calm, steady, and frighteningly direct. "This is Admiral Reyes. Dominion vessels, we are aware you are returning to your capital. We advise caution." The officers exchanged shocked looks. The humans knew exactly where they were going. Reyes continued, "You are not the only ones who saw our battle. Others were watching. We detected foreign shadows in our borders. Advanced signatures. Not yours. Not ours." The bridge grew cold. "We recommend this. Prepare your defenses. Not for us, not yet, but for something older, something patient, something that watches." Another officer whispered, "The unknown ships." The humans detected them too. Reyes spoke again. "We do not seek conflict with the Dominion, but if you provoke us again, we will not hold back as we did before." Dravak clenched his jaw. The humans had shown mercy, something no Dominion species would have done in their place. But the mercy came with strength, not weakness. The message ended with a final line. "And Commander Dravak, tell your council this. The galaxy is changing. Old forces are waking. Choose your next move carefully." Silence took over the bridge. One officer finally found the courage to speak. "Commander, what does that mean?" Dravak didn't answer right away. He stood slowly, the weight of the galaxy pressing on his shoulders. "It means the humans know more than we thought," he said quietly. "And it means we are all moving toward something bigger than war." He looked at the stars ahead. Something is coming. Something powerful. The Dominion fleet continued toward the home system, engines glowing softly. But for the first time in history, the Dominion was returning not as conquerors. They were returning with fear. Fear of humans. Fear of the unknown watchers. Fear of a future that no one understood. And soon, the High Council would decide what came next. War, or something far more dangerous. The Dominion fleet entered their home system under a cloud of silence. No horns, no celebration, no proud announcements. Their return was quiet, almost fearful. As the ships approached the capital world, thousands of Karo citizens watched from the surface, unaware that their mighty fleet had been humbled far beyond anything in Dominion history. Inside the flagship, Commander Dravak prepared for the hardest report of his career. He wore his ceremonial armor, polished and heavy, but even the armor felt useless against the weight inside him. The High Council waited in the central chamber, eager to hear about the new species called humans, creatures that had shattered centuries of unquestioned dominance. Dravak walked into the chamber. 10 counselors watched him in silence. Their eyes were sharp, cold, expecting strength, not fear. The High Chancellor stepped forward. "Commander Dravak, report." Dravak began, voice steady but low. He explained everything: the human warning signal, the first encounter, the sudden destruction of Dominion cruisers, the drones, the traps, the battleship Aegis, the second human fleet, and finally, the unknown watchers. Every detail was laid out with honesty. Some counselors grew pale, some grew angry, some leaned forward in interest, but none spoke until he finished. The Chancellor broke the silence. "A new power rises in the galaxy. Humans. Their technology is advanced, but are they a threat?" Dravak answered slowly, choosing every word carefully. "If we attack them, yes." A murmur of outrage swept through the room. Dravak continued. "They showed restraint. They did not destroy us. They allowed us to leave, but they were clear. They will not tolerate invasion. One counselor slammed a fist on the table. We are the Dominion. We do not fear lesser species. We attack, we conquer, we rule. Dravak looked at him. Then we will lose. The counselor froze, stunned. Dravak stepped closer to the circle. Humans are not weak. They fight like they have trained for a war we do not understand. Their machines move like predators. Their ships carry scars of battles we have never seen. They did not show us weakness. They showed us control. The Chancellor studied him. You believe they can defeat us? Dravak nodded. They already did. Silence dropped over the chamber once more. Finally, the Chancellor spoke. And what of the unknown watchers, the ships that followed you? Who are they? Dravak felt the weight of those glowing vessels again. I do not know, but the humans are aware of them, and they fear them. The Council reacted instantly. The humans are afraid of someone? That means they are not the strongest. Maybe we can use this. Dravak shook his head. No. If humans fear something, then that something is beyond any of us. The Chancellor tapped a claw on the table. What do you recommend? For the first time in his life, Dravak spoke a sentence no Karo warrior had ever said. We should make peace. A wave of shock exploded around the room. Counselors shouted, argued, hissed in anger. Dravak stood firm. He had faced human fire. He had seen their discipline. He had felt their warning. He knew the truth. The Dominion could survive humans, but not if they chose war. The Chancellor raised a hand, restoring quiet. What would peace with humans look like? Dravak took a breath. We stay out of their borders. We respect their warnings. And if the unknown watchers become a danger, we fight with the humans, not against them. The room fell silent again. The Chancellor stepped forward, eyes deep with thought. This is a dangerous idea, Dravak, one that will reshape our empire. It is more dangerous to ignore the truth, Dravak replied. At last, the Chancellor nodded slowly. Prepare a message to the humans. We will open communication, quietly. A sense of relief washed over Dravak. Not victory, but survival. Hours later, Dravak returned to his ship. The bridge crew stood ready. He carried a new mission, not of war, but of caution. Open a channel, he ordered. Send to the human border frequency. The operator nodded and activated the transmitter. For a moment, the channel was silent. Then a familiar voice answered. This is Admiral Reyes. Identify. Dravak straightened himself. Commander Dravak of the Karo Dominion. We return home as agreed. Reyes responded calmly. We detected your arrival. Why are you contacting us? Dravak took a breath. We wish to avoid war. A quiet pause followed. Then Reyes's voice softened, only slightly. That is wise. There is more, Dravak said. We saw the Watchers. The ships in your territory. We believe they followed us. You warned us about them. Reyes answered, Yes. They have been seen before. They do not speak. They observe. Dravak asked, Do you know what they want? Reyes's reply was simple. No. But we prepare. Dravak looked at the stars outside his window. Then so will we. For the first time, a strange feeling grew inside him. Not fear, not pride, possibility. The possibility that the galaxy was finally bigger than their own empire, bigger than humans, bigger than anyone. Reyes's voice returned, steady as ever. Dravak, if your Dominion chooses peace, we will respect that. But if they break it, I know, Dravak said. You will finish what you started. Another quiet pause. Then Reyes said something unexpected. Commander, the galaxy is changing. We will need allies. Dravak felt a small, unfamiliar smile form. Perhaps one day. The transmission ended. He stood there for a long moment, watching the stars drift past. The war they expected never came. Instead, something new began. An uneasy understanding. A fragile respect. Humans were no longer unknown. The Dominion was no longer fearless, and the Watchers were still out there, waiting. But for now, there was peace. And sometimes peace was harder to earn than victory. Dravak returned to his command chair and looked at his crew. "The galaxy is not what we thought," he said quietly. And for the first time in Dominion history, the crew nodded, not with arrogance, but with acceptance. The universe was bigger than their pride, and humanity had changed everything.